Hi everyone, welcome to the Lord of Blights Masterclass Part 5. So this is where we're at the minute, if you're following along. So we just finished the red cloth on the loincloth there, added a bit of texture. So I did want to go into the metal areas next, but what we've got to do first is we've got to paint the dark wood areas. So in the planning video, we said we'd do it a neutral wood. So the reason for that is that we've got to paint the wood that's inside here first, before we do the metal copper around the edge. So we're going to have to get the wood done next. I know it's not the most exciting part, but it needs to be done. So it features on the shield, on the gallows here that hangs off his back, and then there's some wood there on the hammer as well, the hammer at the handle. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do it all the same colour because it features in the middle of the figure and then around the two corners of the figure as well, so it'll tie the figure together nicely. So we're going to start that, so hopefully it shouldn't be too painful. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some dryad bark, mix that on my palette with a little bit of water, and we're going to give all of the wooden areas a coat of dryad bark. So with the base coats, remember, keep your brush moving fast, do a few coats, and use thin paint. Once it's dry, do another coat. Don't worry about being too neat with this. We're going to be going over all the other areas afterwards. So do this on the wooden gallows here, on the shield, and on the handle of the hammer as well. And then we'll come back and show you how that looks. Okay, so that's a dryad bark base coat done. That's on all of those wooden areas there. And then on the handle that we've got. So it's just a solid base coat. The next thing we're going to do is quite simple. We're going to thin down some black paint. So you can use Norn oil if you want to, but I prefer black paint because it holds the pigment a bit stronger. It's about this consistency. And then we're just going to wash it over the whole of the area. Just being nice and loose with it. Over all of that wood, allowing it to run into all those recesses. And darken down the base coat as well. So do that over all of the wooden areas and let it dry, and then we'll come back and have a look how it looks. Okay, so the black wash, that's dry now on all of those areas, so it's just dulled down that flatness of the brown and just run into the recesses, just in all those areas there. Do it a little bit darker for us. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some dryad bark again, add some water to that onto the palette, just a little bit, and then we're going to start painting in some wooden texture. This wood is pretty flat. We want to give it a little bit more texture, so using the dryad bark, just paint down some lines, allowing them to run into each other. Don't worry about being too methodical with this. The first ones we do, they can be quite broad, quite thick, and then as we go through the stages, they'll get a little bit lighter. And a little bit thinner. So just to start with, we're just leaving a little bit of that base coat with wash showing every now and then in between these lines that we're doing. We do that over the whole area. You can see I'm not worried too much about where it's going. As long as we're leaving a little bit of that darker colour showing, then we're doing the right thing. Don't want to cover up any of our shading, so try not to get anything in there. Just following the grain of the wood. So you do that over all those areas, and the same with the shield as well. So basically we're just going to be leaving the shade where the wash has ran. Just painting this quite loosely onto those raised areas. We'll do that over the whole shield. And then when it comes to the handle, we're basically going to do the same thing, painting the wood grain. But obviously the handle's a little bit smaller, so we're going to be a little bit finer with our lines. and I'll do that all over the handle as well. And come back and show you how it looks. Okay, so we've painted those wood grain lines in now, the dryad bark, so hopefully you can see a little bit. Still quite subtle, but you get the idea. It's quite loose to begin with, so we can plot some more lines in. The shield's quite battered, so we just ended up really with a highlight on that. And then the handle's quite small, so I just put some fine ones on there. And then we're going to carry on now. So I did a 50-50 mix of dryad bark and Gawthorpe brown on the palette, and I've added some water to that as well, as usual, just to help it float. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to find the inside of those lines that we just painted and paint a finer line with this lighter colour, just picking out that wood grain a little bit more. We're going to do this across everything that we've just done. So allowing it to wobble and merge into other lines where you want to. It will give it that natural feeling rather than just straight lines. So it should be getting a natural feel to it. And do that down all of those areas as well. So try not to go into the recessed areas. Give it a little wobble every now and then. Make some thicker, some slightly thinner. So I think you get the idea now, so I'm just going to go across all of what we've just done with this. It can enhance that wood grain that we want. Just there. So I'm going to do this then, and on all of these areas, and then come back and show you how it looks. Okay guys, that's the mix stage done now. So I'll just show you now. We've got those sort of rough lines going on now. You can start to see a slight wood grain effect going on. So that's on the gallows. Did it on the shield as well. See that there? And also on the handle of the hammer on both sides. Cool. So the next stage then, we're going to take some pure Gawthorpe brown, thin that down on the palette, and repeat that again, working inside some of those lines and really just working on that texture that we're going for a little bit more. So we're getting lighter. So let's have a look. So maybe have a look at some reference, some graphic wood grain, but you really just want to get these lines. So paint a line, leaving some of those previous colours. And sometimes those lines will merge or separate. So for example, you can go down, bring it out, and then back in. And then we can paint like a knot in the middle there to make it have that wood effect a little bit more. And some lines can be a bit thicker, some thinner. I'm going to go over all of this, doing this now. We'll get a bit more of a wood grain effect. So I'm going to go over all of this and show you how that should look. Okay, so that was the Gawthorpe brown stage done there. So you can see now really starting to show the wood grain effect we're going for across the piece. Same on the shield, just like that. And the hammer handle as well. Just there. So I think we're going to do one more of the same thing. So I'm just going to use rack-half flesh and just thin that down. So it's quite a jump in lightness, but don't want to keep repeating this too long. So the rack-half flesh, we'll do that as like an edge highlight on the wood. So just using the edge of your brush, go around all the edges first. We'll do that. So if you go around all the edges of the wood, just using the flat side of your brush like so. So I'll highlight that. And then once you do that, we'll go inside and just pick out a few of these lines and add a fine line highlight in the middle. Not in all of them, just some of the thicker ones, just to vary the wooden texture slightly. So don't go over all of it because it'll be way too harsh. So that's basically what we're going to do now. So highlight the edges. And then go inside and just pick out a few of those knots and wood texture where we want it. Okay, so I'm going to do that and I'll show you how it looks once it's... Okay, so we've got that final highlight there on the wood now, so you can really see the wood grain that we've added to that flat wood area first, so it really feels like it's got a bit more texture now. That's the sort of thing you should be going for. And then I did the shield as well. And then also the handle, a little bit finer. I'll put some reference pictures up on Instagram as usual, so you guys see that. I also did like a little spiral on the end of the wood there, just to give it that sort of bit more of a wooden texture. So this wood at the minute, it's quite, it's quite flat still, and the rest of the model's got lots of green tones in it. So I thought I did have a look at some images of rotting wood, and they have some nice mossy green areas on them. So I thought if we do that on these, it'll pull the green from this into the miniature as well. So this is Castellan green, so I'm just thinning this down to sort of like semi-wash consistency, and then I'm going to just pick out some areas and then just wash this on, sort of blobbing it on a little bit, maybe just to give it a slightly uneven finish, just so some of the areas are starting to sort of rot and it's sort of wet, damp wood. Give it that feel, and the green on this then will help tie in with the model. Let's put some around these rivets. I think that's where moisture would collect quite a lot. And then just pick a few areas out really. It might work. Slightly blotchy. We'll keep it around these rivets. Maybe it might run in to the old recess. And here might be nice. Give that wood a nice feel. So I'm going to do this over all of the wooden areas, and then I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so that Castellan green now, that's all sort of done now. I've put in a few patches around there. It's quite subtle. So sort of focused it around some of those rivets. Did it on the shield as well, in a few patchy areas. Sort of staining the wood. And did a little bit on the axe handle, not too much. Just a bit here and there. So, and then we're going to go on to, we're going to make that a little bit stronger now. So we're looking at the moss sort of reference pictures. It's quite a yellowy, sort of very warm green side. So I'm just thinning down some Elysian green now. So that's sort of wash consistency. And then we're going to be sort of dabbing that in to the inside the area that we've just done. Very thin, allowing it to pool. So around the edge of it, we've got the Castellan green, and then inside is the Elysian green. Draw your brush into the centre, and the paint will dry more intense in the middle. Staining that wood a little bit more for us. Some areas you can do more, some a little bit less. That kind of thing. So I'm going to go in there and do that inside all of those areas that we've just done and show you how that looks. Okay, so that wash over the mossy areas is dry now. I've done it on there. I'll show you as well. You can see it's just tinted some of those areas with the green. Just a little bit on the axe handle there. I think some of these larger areas, I think just to finish, just take some of that Elysian green again. Maybe just a little bit thicker than that wash consistency. Just in very small amounts here and there, so we're just going to stipple some of that Elysian green inside those areas just to make it stronger. Just to give that mossy area just a slight texture. Don't need a lot. I think it'll just help pick that out a little bit. So just here and there where you feel that it needs it. Just the odd little bit of stippling. Give it that slightly furry sort of mossy feel just over everything. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll take some pictures and we'll do a recap as we always do before the end, and then that'll be the end of this part. Now that wood's done, we can go on to all the other things. So I'll just finish this stippling, we'll take some pictures and I'll do a recap next. Okay, cheers. Okay guys, there's some pictures there of the finished wood with the mossy sort of slightly damp effect that we added to it. So we kept the wood quite cool, so it's going to contrast with the warm colours that are going to surround it, like the brass and the copper that we'll do later. And you can see all the texture there that we painted on. So the wood was quite flat, so we painted that texture on just to give it, a little bit more contrast with the other areas on the model. There'll be extra pictures on my Instagram as always, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. See you later guys, bye.